Okay, guys, what's up? We back at it, man. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't. Make sure you hit that super chat, hit that PayPal, hit that Cash App. We going live. Black women are trending today. I mean, they were at like one, and slowly they've gone down the list. But earlier today, black women was trending because, of course, the election in Georgia, the black reverend got elected, and people are talking about Stacey Abrams and black women and how black women have saved the country. First, they saved us by getting Joe Biden into office, which is gonna save the country and, most importantly, save the black community, especially when we're coming off a year 2020 where we had the most murders in the history of Blackistan. I did a video on that. I'll put a link in the description to that video. 2020 was the most murderous year in Blackistan. More murders were committed. Many cities saw their murder rates go up 50%, double. And now that we have Joe Biden in office, all of that is going to end. And we saw the schools were out. And we saw that children were suffering, weren't learning as much because the schools were out, and they stopped even giving letter grades. But the kids who were doing the worst with the satellite via Skype schooling, the virtual schooling, the kids that were doing the worst, of course, were the African American kids.
Can somebody let Trump know I'm here to help them move? I done drove all the way here from Georgia. I ain't got long. Come on. Come out of there. Get yourself together. Melania, get them coats. Trump, get your wig and your spray. Let's go. Come on. It's over. I ain't got all day. Come on. Get to stepping. Let's go.
And as we know, black women, after they helped Biden get in office, they started complaining that he wouldn't return their phone calls. But that was not their gift for all their support. For their staunch support for his campaign, their gift was to have a sister as a vice president. Even though she like 10% of a sister. 10% of a sister is better than no sister, if you ask me. What's 0% of nothing? Nothing. What's 10% of something? 10% of something. So they got 10% of a sister in the White House with Biden, and that was really their gift. There's no policy, there's nothing that they're going to get from it. They're not going to get anything for it. There'll be no reward, nothing that will be tangibly help their children or their families, which mostly consist of women and children. So you have to break this stuff down a little bit, guys. Black families are 78% nationally black women and children. When you go to cities like Baltimore, Milwaukee, Chicago, DC, Louisville, Baton Rouge, Houston, St. Louis, the number skyrockets up to 85, 90%. So in these democratic cities, you have to understand, 80% of black people live in cities, democratically run cities. So where we live, the number of single mother homes is 85, 90%. So the stat that we hear about 77% of black homes are single mothers, that's nationally. That's if you take Idaho, Montana, Hawaii, Alaska. But if you just focus on the cities where we actually live at, it's 85 to 90% single mother homes. So the Democratic Party can't really do anything. The women are going to have to do it themselves. The black women, what they got for their support, they're voting 97% for the Democratic Party. What they got for that was 10% sub-Saharan African blood. If that's what Kamala, if she takes the DNA test, she's probably going to be 10% sub-Saharan African blood. You got that in the White House. Now, when you look at what's going on in the community, these women are being praised for their ability to mobilize and to organize and to get things done. Galvanize the vote. They brought out the vote. They got all these people to get out and vote. They organized this stuff. They went and picked people up at their homes and drove them to polling stations. They called people. They reminded people. They did commercials. They had rallies. They did everything. Everything they did to get out the vote so that Joe Biden can get in office and they could have a 10% sub-Saharan African blood vice president and nothing else. Bangladeshi women, they didn't do any of that. But let's see what Bangladeshi women are doing in their community.
Well, proving your academic smarts has been the way many low-income children have gained access to New York's top 8 selective high schools. But recently, the headlines have focused on a sharp decline in the number of black and Latino students making it through the entrance tests. A number of social and systemic factors are at play, but at the same time, the number of students from relatively newer immigrant communities, particularly Bangladeshis, have been rising every year. The BBC's Brajesh Upadhyay travelled to Jackson Heights, New York, to find out why.
On a Saturday morning, this Bangladeshi neighborhood is buzzing with shoppers. But equally busy are the classrooms at a nearby tutoring firm, filled with students doing extra work at the weekend to try to get into New York's best publicly funded schools. Khan's Tutorial is a go-to destination for children from mostly low-income Bangladeshi families. The firm, started by a Bangladeshi teacher 25 years ago with 3 students, now attracts more than 3,000 students a week.
I just want to touch on this tutoring farm thing. Wow. So, these Bangladeshi Americans who are far poorer than African Americans, many can't speak the language. The men and the women of their community have started tutoring farms. And the reason I'm just saying that why it's alarming that we don't have this in the black community, because look at what black women just did to get Joe Biden elected. Look at the resources. Look what black women did to raise $10 billion for Black Lives Matter. So that Jacob Blake wouldn't get shot in the back. And George Floyd wouldn't get a knee on his neck. Look at the things that black women are doing. They're doing great things out here. They may not be the cause, the reason may be crazy, but look at the cause. Look at the result. Look what they've earned. They got who they wanted in the White House. They raised $10 billion for social justice. Well, don't think about what they're going to spend it on. Don't think about what their presidential candidate is going to do. Just think about that power. Where are the tutoring farms? Where are the tutoring farms? I've checked. I haven't seen one. Now, if you know of a tutoring farm in the African American community, please tell me. Please my email will be posted in the comment section.
But at the same time, the number of students from relatively newer immigrant communities, particularly Bangladeshis, have been rising every year. The BBC's Brajesh Upadhyay travelled to Jackson Heights, New York, to find out why.
On a Saturday morning, this Bangladeshi neighborhood is buzzing with shoppers. But equally busy are the classrooms at a nearby tutoring firm filled with students doing extra work at the weekend to try to get into New York's best publicly funded schools. Khan's Tutorial is a go-to destination for children from mostly low-income Bangladeshi families. The firm, started by a Bangladeshi teacher 25 years ago with 3 students, now attracts more than 3,000 students a week. The year-end state exams at schools are taken very seriously, and the focus is on mastering maths and English skills from an early age.
I found math really hard because I feel like I was really behind all the other students in math. So then at Khan's, they really pushed me to work on my weaknesses.
While the city debates why its black and Latino students are not making it onto the list, these newer immigrants, many of them with higher poverty rates, have been acing the tests year after year. Syed Ali, who is writing a book on the subject, calls it the peer effect.
I think it's really about within the schools themselves and seeing what are your peers doing. And so in highly segregated schools where the blacks and Latinos are, very few students even take the exam, let alone get into these schools. And so
in the black communities, the kids aren't even, in large part, taking the exams. And when they do, of course, they said earlier that they're failing miserably. But the Bangladeshi kids who just got here, parents can't speak English, are getting in because of these tutoring farms. If you know of a tutoring farm in the black community that black women have started, the Stacey Abrams tutoring farm, anyone, it doesn't matter. The Angela Rye Tutoring Center, the April Ryan Tutoring Farm. If you know of one, tell me.
What also helps is the celebration of success and the healthy rivalry within the community. Samin Hussain, the son of a daily wage worker, got into the highly sought-after Bronx High School of Science, but he still feels he could have done better.
To be honest, I felt a little disappointed because it's not what I wanted, but eventually I got used to it because this is the school I'm going to attend. And once I went to their open house, I saw all the opportunities and all the courses and classes I could take, and I feel very excited to go there.
These schools offer not just an education, but also opportunity. They have stellar academic records, they are free to attend, and for many in the immigrant communities, they provide a way out of poverty. For each of them, it's a chance to chase an American dream. Brajesh Upadhyay, BBC News, New York.
So back to these sisters. Here's Megan Rapinoe, the great soccer player. And I love watching women's soccer. For one thing, the U.S. it's one soccer event that we can win. Because the men are terrible. But she goes on to say, you cannot say this loud enough. I was in the bubble. I saw this happening in real time. If we're serious about supporting women and black women, make sure this story gets told far and wide. So proud of you, Sue Bird, and the rest of the WNBA players. So this is in response to a Jemele Hill tweet, where Jemele Hill said, I don't know who needs to hear this, But Reverend Ralph Warnock, the guy who won the Georgia runoff, which black women are taking credit for and are being given credit for, she says Reverend Ralph Warnock was polling at 9% when the Atlanta Dream and the WNBA players threw their full support behind him and elevated his national profile. Now he's Georgia's first black senator. Okay? So this was a guy who wasn't even on, this Ralph Warnock guy wasn't even on the radar. He was just a guy who threw his hat into the race. We don't know his qualifications. We don't know what he's about. We don't know his record. He's just some reverend threw his hat into the race. And because the other woman who's running also owns the Atlanta Dream, and she was like, and she spoke out against the totally just hijacking of the WNBA by the woke mob, left liberals who just completely hijacked the WNBA with their wokeness. They're protesting in their statements every 5 minutes during the game, before the game, after the game. She said, look, it's getting to be a little bit too much. So the WNBA players went full woke after she said that. They got even woker. And now, because of them, and because of, you know, their movements, their contribution amongst other groups of black women, we have this reverend that nobody heard about. We have this reverend nobody heard about 10 minutes ago, is the new senator for Georgia. Okay? So this reverend nobody heard about 10 minutes ago is the new senator in Georgia. So this woman out of Baywells says that if we trust black women, America, we will see the America, we be the America of our ideals. Okay? Bangladeshi women are not doing all of this stuff. Yet their community is the Bangladeshi community of their ideals. Blackistan is not ideal, Jack. Blackistan is not ideal. Okay? It's just not. Okay? It's not. Okay? It's not ideal. But you raised $10 billion. You sisters, 3 sisters raised $10 billion in a few years. You got the candidate you wanted in the White House. You got you turned some guy who nobody ever heard of 10 minutes ago. You made him the first black, he's one of the 3 black senators now. Now you got 4 black senators. 3 now, because Kamala's not in there anymore. Tim Scott, Cory Booker, and this guy. If you know of a tutoring farm anywhere in black America, anywhere, please send me the story. Because I don't want to just assume from the test scores. If I look at the test scores and I look at how many of these kids are getting into these exclusive, publicly funded high schools in these inner cities, I can already tell you there's no tutoring farms. But I don't want to do that. Send me the stories about the tutoring farms. Please send them. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe. Also, hit that super chat, hit that PayPal, hit that Cash App. You guys got to fund channels like this. Support channels like this. Don't treat me like a stepchild. Because nobody else is going to give you the real. Nobody else is going to highlight this to you. Now look at this out-of-touch, white, liberal, blue check woman. Look at what she writes. We're coming off a year where there were more murders, more children were shot and killed in Blackistan than ever. Little babies hit with stray bullets. More little babies hit with stray bullets riding in the car or playing at a playground or at a cookout or at the mall than any year in history. Test scores abysmal. Grades abysmal. And this year they're not giving letter grades, so we don't know what the grades are like this year. Listen to what this blue check white woman says about black women. Black women didn't save us. They saved themselves, their families, and their communities and futures. And in doing so, happened to save the rest of us. The ongoing hero praise from non-black people does nothing when we do little else to eradicate the battles black women face in the first place. Look at this pandering from these white women. Re-upping this, black women led us through the most consequential political conquest of our lifetimes. It's high time we thank them. Y'all gotta stop only praising black women when we do the impossible. Praise us for just existing. Please and thanks. I'm tired of having to prove my worth first. I exist, so I am worthy. The mayor of my city, which has had more murders than they've had in 16 years, the test scores are abysmal. The young people are they're not doing well across the board. Salute to all the young people in D.C., but they're not doing well compared to Bangladeshi kids who are far poorer and speak less English than them. And it's not their fault. But the mayor of that city says, when black women are successful, our country is successful. And this is why representation matters. What representation would she be talking about? The fact that every major city has a black woman as the mayor? Would that be the representation she's talking about? Black woman, even the mayor or the police chief of every major city. Again, a black woman is either the mayor or the police chief of every major city. Except New York. New York, they have de Blasio and they have the other white guy who's the police chief. Representation matters. Okay, you're being represented. You run all these major cities. Charlotte, Compton, D.C., San Francisco, Chicago, Atlanta. And no, I can tell you this, there's no tutoring farms in D.C. I'll tell you that. So get in the comment section, like, subscribe, donate, peace. I'm out.